To those of you who know the song I Miss You by Blink-182, yes, this is where the line "we can live like Jack and Sally" comes from. Contrary to popular belief, Tim Burton did not write nor did he direct The Nightmare Before Christmas. He produced it, but this was directed by Henry Selick and written by Carolyn Thompson and Michael McDowell, and features the voices of Chris Sarandon, Danny Elfman, Catherine O'Hara, Ken Page, and Ed Ivory. The Nightmare Before Christmas is set in the holiday realm of Halloween Town, where the Pumpkin King Jack Skellington helps the town celebrate Halloween, then spends the rest of the year planning for the next Halloween. And Jack Skellington is just sick of this. He wanders into the woods and falls into a portal and gets into Christmas Town. And Jack really likes the mood and the feel and the style of Christmas, so he tries to bring Christmas back to Halloween Town and tries to celebrate Christmas his own way, but this does not end up very well. So Merry Christmas everybody. I wanted to review something special for this holiday season. There were a lot of movies I could have picked, but when I really thought about it, I just felt like The Nightmare Before Christmas really just holds a special place in my heart, I think. The Nightmare Before Christmas has absolutely beautiful animation, some really good voice acting, and some great music that really kind of gives this movie its own voice. First of all, in my opinion, I think the stop motion animation in The Nightmare Before Christmas is absolutely flawless. This is some of the best stop motion animation you will ever see. The amount of detail and texture in the shots just made me forget that I was watching a stop motion animation film. Like the fluidity of the characters and the environments just made it feel like I was watching, 3D rendering. And it's just amazing how the environments look in this movie, because you get quite a few environments and they all have their different unique personalities. Halloween Town, like according to Henry Selick, was inspired by German expressionism, and you can really see it in the colors and the lighting. And the lighting in Halloween Town is absolutely brilliant. It's just so well lit. And then when you get to Christmas Town, it looks like How the Grinch Stole Christmas. It looks like a Dr. Seuss book put into stop motion animation form. And then when you get to the real world, it's very symmetrical. It looks very kind of traditional stop motion animation. And when these elements start crossing over into each other, it looks even better. When Jack Skellington starts bringing in Halloween things to the real world, but they're inspired by Christmas time. Like it's just an explosion of animation greatness. And to add to that, this movie also adds in some traditional animation with the ghosts and the shadows of Oogie Boogie and the other characters, and they're 2D, and it's great to see just so many of these animation techniques just blending into one. And the backgrounds are also, I think, traditionally drawn also. The character models in this movie are very, very unique from each other. They're very flexible also. That's why they don't really feel like, traditional stop motion animation figures. Jack Skellington is very, very lanky, and like the way he kind of moves around is almost kind of spider-like. Then you've got Sally, who's she really does feel like a rag doll, and like the way she kind of comes apart. It's just really, really imaginative stuff. And Oogie Boogie is just this big burlap sack monster, and it's great to see all these characters, I think. But even if they all look different, they stay consistent in style, and you believe that they all belong to one world. The sound design in this movie is also very creative. When you're trying to sound design an animated movie, it's much harder in my opinion. Well, at least I hear, because you have to create every single sound out of scratch. And I think the way they do it here is it's very, very creative, like I said, because there's lots of textures going on in the movie, especially in Halloween Town. Like it's filled with like lots of different surfaces, like Sally's dad, the mad doctor guy, like he's kind of made of metal, so when he touches, like when somebody like hits him on the head or whatever, like it makes a metal sound. And but then Sally's made out of cloth, and so is Oogie Boogie, and like all this different kind of stuff that can lead to really great sound. Like my favorite like sound effect in this movie is the doorbell that the mayor rings on Jack's house, where it's like it makes some sort of sound and there's a screech, and it's just, I don't know, it's just really interesting stuff. The songs in this movie, yes, this is a musical. The songs here aren't the catchiest, but I feel like that's kind of the point, because to make Halloween Town songs like really, really catchy kind of goes against what they're going for, I think. But it really gives this movie its own voice. Like this whole movie sounds like this big gothic opera almost, with the exceptions of the songs "What's This" when Jack's in Christmas Town, and Oogie Boogie's song, which is just like it has a lot of groove to it. But Danny Elfman's original score for this movie, I think, is amazing, because he just really seamlessly combines Halloween sounds with Christmas themes, and it really just blends so well into just this one thing that I have not heard in any other movie. Now, The Nightmare Before Christmas is really, really short. It's like an hour, 15 minutes maybe, but I think it's actually very thoughtfully paced. It doesn't fly by in a blur, not necessarily, because I feel like lots of time is given to really develop Jack's character and Sally's character also through songs or through quieter moments. This is actually kind of a very mature kind of story, emotionally speaking. The pace really picks up though in these two standout scenes where it's just full of imagination. The editing is just great. That's Oogie Boogie's song when he's like kind of toying around with Santa, and when the sequence where Jack's delivering presents, and it's all like amazing to watch. The script in this movie really comes off like a children's fairy tale or a storybook. In the way it's just so unbridled in the way the world is being built, in the way the characters speak is very kind of storybookish. And the lyrics are just extremely witty. And Jack Skellington is really, truly an amazing character in my opinion, because there's just so much that's going on in his head. From the beginning of the movie till the end of the movie, you feel like you've gotten to know Jack so well, because he's trying to figure out Christmas and he goes through all these different approaches. Like he's feeling conflicted about his town, but he loves it at the same time, and he's a really, really meaty character. However, one of the most interesting things for me when it has to do with the story of this movie is that while Jack is the main protagonist, I don't think he's like the hero. I think Sally is really the hero of this story, because she's the only person who really has her head on straight in Halloween Town, and she's really just trying to help Jack kind of prevent disaster. And she's really unique even for this world, because she was created by someone else in this world, and so she does kind of feel left out. Good job also to all the voice actors, especially to Chris Sarandon and Danny Elfman. Chris Sarandon plays Jack's speaking voice, and Danny Elfman is his singing voice, but at first I didn't know this was two different people. Like, they really sounded like the same character, I think. And whether he's singing or speaking, Jack has this theatricality about him, but he also has this real sensitive side within him. Speaking of sensitive sides though, Catherine O'Hara, who plays Sally, both her singing and speaking voice, I think is just absolutely endearing. She sounds so innocent and cute and and her singing voice is really, really lovely as well, in that fragile but not completely helpless way. And one other standout voice in this movie is Ken Page as Oogie Boogie, who is extremely hypnotic in this voice. But he's scary at the same time. Like, I always imagined him as like a cross between the genie from Aladdin and like a classic Disney villain. Now, it really is easy to mistake Tim Burton for directing this movie, because Henry Selick, the director, really also knows how to put the gothic elements in the spotlight. Like many good animation directors, I think Henry Selick always makes sure something is happening in the background. Like, when you're an animation director, you really have to have the entire like big picture in your mind, but not to the point where it's distracting. Henry Selick really knows when to dial it down and just really put focus on like one thing. The image that comes to mind is like the really famous image of Jack walking up the hill and the moon is in the background, and I thought that was just beautiful and didn't really need lots of extra stuff happening in the background. It's a real credit to Selick for using these really weird elements and being able to weave into them like a heartfelt story that's about lots of different things. Some people will argue that the story of Jack Skellington is he's like a marketing executive or whatever, but I see it as really a story about understanding cultures and recognizing that some customs really, like, we won't really be able to fully integrate them into ours, but we can still respect them for what they are. That's such a weird and mature kind of message for a kids film. My only issue with The Nightmare Before Christmas is an issue that comes with a lot of movies that are really aimed towards kids and younger audiences, is that it can't help but feel underwritten, I think, in the way that the secondary characters, like, we don't really know too much about them, especially like the dad of Sally, who I feel like should have been a bit more fleshed out to really get his relationship with Sally. And like the way this movie ends just kind of feels a bit sudden. Like, I was hoping like there'd be a bit more explanation of how these characters reacted after everything had happened. But that's a really small problem for what this movie wants to be, and what this movie is awesome. This is an awesome movie. If you have not seen The Nightmare Before Christmas yet, you owe it to yourself to see it at least once, whether for Halloween or Christmas or whatever. Alright, but what did you guys think of The Nightmare Before Christmas? If you've seen it, did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought, whether you agree with me or not, please leave me a comment. Let's have a conversation, and Merry Christmas, everybody.